A warm welcome to everybody who is listening to this presentation. Before I start my lecture, I think it's good to share some personal data about me and my career. In my first life, so to say, I've been a board-certified nuclear medicine physician and working at a large university hospital almost for 30 years. When I retired, I started working on the scientific data about a very astonishing phenomenon that 80 to 90% of the population gets sick by chronic diseases which medicine cannot heal. And this was the reason that I started a new business. I set up an academy for human medicine so I can teach our German people usually about the fact which I found in the data banks. And in addition, I initiated the German Foundation for Health Information and Prevention. So I'm intensively working on this topic. So let us look at the details. The dominating health topic in the media in the last 2 years was the coronavirus. But if you look at the official figures of the WHO, indeed, they proclaim almost 7 million deaths. But on the other hand, if you look to other infections like tuberculosis, every year 1.5 million people die from or by tuberculosis. 1.5 million. When was it the last time that you heard anything about tuberculosis? But the real killers come here. Death by non-communicable diseases, not by infection. Non-communicable diseases, that means heart disease. 18 million people die every year from heart disease. From cancer, it's 9 million. From lung disease, it's almost 4 million, and by diabetes, 1.6 million. That means altogether, 80 to 90% of the population die from non-communicable diseases and not from virus infection. In general, worldwide is 70%, but if you look at modern countries like USA or Germany or Australia, it's 90%. And so it's not the virus, but our lifestyle is the problem. And the huge pandemic is the non-communicable diseases. The reason for that is that we learned in this century that our body is not ruled by the genes, but it's modulated by epigenetics. That means influences from within us, hormones, etc., but also from the environment. Look at this picture. You have all the different influences, not all, some of them, Sean, and these influences actually are important how the cell metabolism works. And if the factors are according to evolution, then we have an environment which is species specific. But as we change the environment by the modern inventions and so on, we do no longer get all the we need, and then we get sick. Now, this is not just a strange idea, but that lifestyle is a huge risk factor for diseases, especially heart disease, is shown in this study, which has been published in 2004. What did they do? They looked for almost 20,000 people with a heart attack. And the idea was at that time that the genes are responsible for the disease. But they didn't find any genes. So heart attack is happening in Japan on the same reasons as in Brazil or in Germany or in your country, and it is due to lifestyle factors. You see here different lifestyle factors or risk for the heart disease, like smoking or blood pressure and stress and so on. Each risk was almost 2.5-fold or 3-fold. Smoking was 3.5-fold, but so in the average it was 2.5-fold. If you take 4 risk factors, you can calculate 2.4 multiplied by 2.5 multiplied by 4 is 10. It's not true. The risk came already to 46-fold, 42-fold. If you have all 9 risk factors, the probability to die from a heart attack is 330-fold. 330-fold, not 300%, that would be 3-fold. 330-fold. This is the reason why at the age of 60, 70, almost the whole population has some sort of heart disease. They collect the risk and it's exponentially going up. There's another publication. It has been done in Germany and with 20,000 people, average 49 years old, no chronic diseases, and they followed up just for 4 lifestyle factors. That was Mediterranean diet, BMI lower than 30, physical activity more than 3.5 hours per week, and non-smoking status. The first result was that only 9% of the German population were able to keep on this lifestyle. Not even 10%. So they looked what happened after 8 years. The observation was the more positive factors were present, the lesser the incidence of chronic diseases. So you may say, oh, I don't need a study for that. If 20,000 people, it's obviously. Yes, but if you have 20,000 people, you can calculate in a different way and look at the percentage. Minus 90% of diabetes, minus 80% of myocardial infarction, and minus 80% of all chronic diseases. So this means just by 4 different lifestyle factors put together, we are able to overcome all the diabetes and almost all myocardial infarctions. A huge perspective, but only 9%, at least in the German population, behave according. And we have similar studies from America, it's just the same. So this is a drawing that shows that the health problem is actually, for example, done by food. It's a fast food bin, and on the right side you have the input, on the left side the output, and the meaning that's put. That's a German word for chicken. So the people come in, lean as they are, come out fat and overweight. They do not go there to get fat, but they become because the food is changed and there's no longer species specific. What can we do? Well, if we look at the research facts, that's the knowledge which is in the data banks. We have almost 20 different new areas. That's the microbiome, the heart variability, vitamin D is a hormone, circadian rhythm, micronutrients, and so on and so on. And today I'm going to talk about mitochondrial energy metabolism. It's just one aspect of all the whole complexes studied. And we have to go back, or we can go back to the last century. The biotechnologist Siegfried Wolz, he worked together with Nobel Prize winner Professor Fridolin on research on the yeast cells. That was something not done at that time, and he invented the enzyme yeast cell and developed a new practice on cell oxygen, leading to a huge progress supporting the mitochondrial energy metabolism. And we are going to have more details about this important function. It is well known that the small particles, the mitochondria, are responsible for the energy production in our cells. And if this doesn't work, we have to treat this mitochondrial dysfunction, because otherwise the cell has a lack of energy, and after a while, or the organ has a lack, and then the whole body has a lack, and we get sick. So especially oxygen deficiency syndrome. Why that? Because to burn your nutrition, you need oxygen. Because burning means using oxygen to get energy. So it enables the human metabolism for energy production, but it is almost one of the most destructive active ingredients. Oxygen is a risk for the cell, especially in this situation. What happens there? Usually the glucose is broken down in molecules of pyruvate, and then it is reduced either to lactic acid in the cytosol, or it's further processed in the mitochondria via conversion to complete glycolysis and glycerine breakdown. The similar is true for fatty acids and beta oxidation. You see the scheme on the left side. It's a very complex biochemical and energetic process which has many ingredients, and they have all be in correct disorder, otherwise the process is not working. So the mitochondria, the name comes from the Greek, it's mitos, that means thread, and chondrion, that means grain. It looked in the microscope like that. It was discovered in 1886 by Richard Altman, and we learned very soon that it's a power plant of the cell. As I told you already, it produces energy and ATP. It has its own DNA, different from the cell. The diameter is very tiny, 1.5 micrometer, and you have up to 6,000 mitochondria in a cell, especially in those where high energy is used, like the nerve cells, in muscle, or in the egg cells, for instance. And they have a folded membrane to have a larger react area, and it's called the endosymbiotic theory. That means, obviously, in former times, the mitochondria have been some like bacteria which joined the human cells, and they made a symbiosis, because symbiosis is the most effective way nature evolves. You see here the intercellular space, the matrix space, the outer membrane, and the inner space. And it's not just energy production of the mitochondria. They have more important tasks. They are helpful for the amino acid synthesis, as well as fatty acid, hormone synthesis, and the heme synthesis. That means the red blood color. It disposes of urea, amino acids, and fatty acids, and most important, it controls apoptosis. That means cell death. If the cell is no longer working correctly, the mitochondria decide that it gets rid of the and gone away. So, which risk factors are there for mitochondrial dysfunction? Naturally, what I showed is insufficient supply of micronutrients, because they have to work every day. And on the other side, if you have high physical stress, for instance also by sport, not only in the brain, also by sport, then the mitochondria have to work hard and they need more micronutrients. Progressing age, look at me, you are no longer working so effectively. If you have psychological stress, as I already mentioned, in the brain, if you have inflammation, not by viruses, that's infection, but inflammation means a state of diffuse chronic inflammation, and this is very dangerous for the mitochondria. And if you have wrong lifestyle factors, like smoking, or if you're taking some medicine, or the medication is deranging the mitochondria. And on the other side, you have environmental factors, for instance, like UV radiation. But for the environmental factors, when there are old factors, that means our evolution has been done in the situation of these factors like UV radiation, then the body is able to compensate for that. He has learned that. But if we, the mankind, produces new radiation which we are not adapted to, then we have a huge problem like cellular phones. So we come to the contemporary lifestyle, and here we are, reactive oxygen species, and that means stress in any way of the body. But on the other side, the mitochondria are the main source of reactive oxygen species themselves. Why? I already mentioned that. They burn calories, make energy, and this is always complicated by reactive oxygen species. And you get faulty electron transfer within the respiratory change. If this accumulates, you get cellular damage, especially of proteins, and sometimes they do not completely degrade, especially in the brain, and they accumulate defective mitochondrial molecules, and the cell is no longer able to work correctly. It's one of the reasons of aging and malfunction. And if the accumulated cell damage is too much, then you get loss of function of the cellular components, or whole cells, or the whole organ, and finally you get chronic disease. So it's challenge faced in the mitochondria. On the other side you have energy, and on the other side you have the reactive oxygen species. And in addition, the mitochondria produce signaling molecules for the adaptation and training process, increasing endurance capacity. So positive and negative things come together. This is a detailed explanation on the inflammation. If DNA building blocks are scarce in the cells, the mitochondria release their genetic material. They can no longer survive. There come reactions of the cell's own immune system. That means inflammatory reactions analogs to bacterial or viral infections in the cell. And the aging process starts. Heart and neurodegenerative diseases and obesity are linked to mitochondrial genetic material. On the other side, the body is prepared for the ROS detoxification. As I told you, all influences which have been resulted from evolution, the body can compensate for, has various strategies, and we can help him by supporting with detoxification. And this is one of the main topics we learned for our nutrition. It depends on your nutrition whether the mitochondria work or do not work. So one of the things you can do, strange enough, eat nothing or intermittent fasting. It reduces the oxidative stress because the body has not to burn so many calories, so the oxidative stress goes down. It reduces age-related membrane permeability impairment. It improves mitochondria quality and quantity. It reduces age-related mitochondrial degeneration and increases mitochondria biosynthesis, oxygen uptake, and ATP production. All this can be done by energy restriction intermittent fasting. And it would be, or it is, a very easy way to lose overweight if you reduce your daily eating. To work in a correct manner, the mitochondria require a broad spectrum of nutrients. If you have a low nutrient diet, it increases the risk of oxygen deficiency syndrome, and this is especially in physical activity. I have already mentioned that. Then low food intake or during weight reduction phases, during extra stress, intermittent fasting, during illness, and the phytochemicals which are helpful are the phenols and stimulants, which we know as, for instance, from resveratrol, and they have been called antioxidants. Therefore, they are anti-inflammatory. They are cardioprotective and anti-atherogenic. They reduce the neurodegeneration in the hippocampus. That's the area where the dementia happens. And it has positive effects on Parkinson's disease. So the blue intensive color, the red color, means there are resveratrol-like antioxidants which help the system. What they else do need is vitamin A, carnitine, glutamine, creatinine, alpha-lipoic acid, and coenzyme Q10. You can help your food if you supplement. We do know that the general food is getting poorer and poorer on the actually needed support for the mitochondria. So you can help them by supplement. And one of the supplement provider is the enzyme yeast cells. They have a natural broad-based nutrient portfolio, especially compiled for loss elimination. And this has been used to design the Zell Oxygen Plus by Dr. Woltz. It's a vital substance in natural matrix, so it's a high available bioactive substance, and it eliminates the high loss capacity, which is documented by measuring the ORAC value. How does it work? The yeast cell itself has in its cell body all these vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, enzymes, and trace elements, which are shown on this drawing. And as I told you, it has been in the last century, Woltz was working on this new idea, and actually he was able to have a process which then led to the foundation of the Dr. Woltz Cell in 1969. So it was not him alone. He was together with Otto Warburg and also with Gerhard Seeger, famous people of the last century. We still have this chance today because the company is still working and well working, and you see here a schematic scheme of this production. It's industrial production, but the basis is natural. How does it work? There are different components in the yeast cells which finally comes out. It's vitamin B1 and so on, it's minerals and trace elements. You can read all the columns on your own. Different biological effect components and phytochemicals. Just all this comes from a yeast cell. So it's a huge idea to use this as a compound for support. One of the things is detoxification. It is necessary in the yeast cell, but it's also necessary in the human cell. So by combining these things together, we improve our human cells. 70% identical to human cells. One would not expect that, but it's not true that the human race is the crown of nature. We use many things which have already been at the beginning of evolution. Because they are so effective, nature never changed them, but used them in a different compound. So There is a publication which was called Influence of Yeast Cell Preparation on the Exercise-Induced Reaction of Muscle Stress in Immune Function. It was done by the University of Freiburg in Germany. Here you see that there is a significant reduction in muscle stress measured by myoglobin, minus 65%, but also by total creatine kinase, 64%. So if you use this product, you improve your reduction in muscle stress. And also there is a significant anti-inflammatory effect. Fibrinogen after 1 hour after the exercise was reduced by 27%. The immune response was improved or less reduced by almost 40%. And so the mitochondrial function therapy is a small puzzle piece in a new understanding of our body in the 21st century. If we put all these pieces together, we can form a big picture. The human body is a temporal aggregation of terrestrial biomass, an open, non-linear, self-regulating, self-regenerating, and sometimes also self-reproducing system. And it is in constant exchange with its environment. I have compressed all this knowledge into this small drawing. In the triangle, the highest top is genes. The genes are actually the book of life. That is, everything which is important for the cell function is written down there. But did you ever see a book that is able to read itself? Somebody has to read the book, and that is the cell. And the tool to do that is epigenetic. And as I told you, the epigenetic information comes from the body itself, hormones, etc., but also from the environment. And this environment is threefold. It's the old or ancient natural environment, where we get time and time less information from. It's the pollution of the technical environment, which gets more and more and more. And we have a social environment today, which is very in a big difference to the ancient social system. We have been living in tribes, supporting each other. Today there is competition every day, there's stress every day. So also our social environment has changed on the bad side. And if by this the epigenetic interaction does not work correctly, the inner physician is not developed, we get easily sick, and we are not able to set up optimum health. A huge problem in our population. To overcome this, we have another aspect. This is culture. The culture of a people is responsible if the environment is polluted, or how the food is produced, or how the social contexts are. So what we need is a new culture, and this we have to do to get optimum health. So if we are able to use this information, even in this bin, by a Mediterranean diet instead of industrial diet, we have the chance to use the epigenetic information in the food and help these people to get from fatty people to lean people. And if you don't have the food, you can help the body by cell oxygen supplementation. Yes, we can do it.